And welcome back for another episode. So we're going to keep this start of this episode rather short. We're just going to, since this is again recorded at the 1st of January, we're just going to have a quick look at the race comparison. The numbers should not have changed one bit since the end of the last episode. But I'll just leave this here. You can pause the video to have a look at the numbers. But the numbers should not have changed so far. And since this is the start of the episode, there's not going to be anything notable to report yet. But we'll be back at the end of the year again to go through the main events of this year, as well as have a look at the numbers again. So I will bring you guys back at the end of the year. And we're now at the end of the year, so let's have a quick... Well, I'll leave this open here while I talk about the stuff that happened this year. So first of all the nations continue with their explorations, more or less. Most nations had to pull in... Actually, I think all nations had to pull in their exploration fleets for some overhaul for the most part, so that took away a bit of the year first. But after that, it started going again like it should be. Now, some nations, primarily the Dutch and the Portuguese, have already designed new ships with faster sails, which is going to be very good for them, since we'll touch that a bit later on. And also, the British are currently designing the new masts for their ships. They'll be taking advantage of those soon enough, I think. Then, all over the world, there's been a bit of an armament race. Pretty much every nation has been very strong on building new ships as much as they can. Not necessarily in a full capacity, but close enough. Now, pretty much every nation has had a fair bit of troubles with cash following the arms race and all other stuff. So currently the only nation that is not in debt is the Dutch. And they're not far off either, but they managed to survive the entire year without losing their entire treasury, which is pretty decent. Now, the civilian sectors have expanded slightly, although I don't remember the exact amount from the start of the episode, but you've just seen it not that long ago, so you can compare the numbers of the shipping line tonnages. The pirates are still the largest one on that front, then is the Spanish, then Ottomans, then I believe Mughals, then Portuguese, then the Dutch, British and French are the last right now. Now, some civilian mining complexes were opened. Currently, the nations that have some of them are French, British, Portuguese, Spanish, Mughals, and Ottomans. The Dutch unfortunately lost their mining colony, more on that a bit later, and the pirates, of course, still don't have one. In terms of diplomacy, the year started with the Ottomans starting to trade with both the Portuguese and the Dutch. And then around July, the French instituted a blockade of Rome, and according to French newspapers, a British vessel allegedly tried to slip past the blockade, and thus the French and Spanish made a joint raid on Port Royal as a response. The British sources do, however, claim that they had no ship in Mediterranean to begin with, and that this was just a lie to start a war. But the victorious write the history, so we shall wait to see what the history books will say in the future. The British called in their allies, Netherlands and Portugal, to aid them in this war. The French and the Dutch had both a mining colony in one of the islands in Caribbean, and thus the garrisons started fighting each other. The French troops were superior in quality, so the Dutch sent a battalion of reinforcements from Curacao with a 4-ship escort. The French then answered to that by sending their own battalion from Tortuga with 6-ship escorts. The French garrison managed to hold fast until the reinforcements arrived, and a small battle in the waters northwest of the island took place, and ultimately the Dutch had to pull back. They lost 2 6th rates, and the remaining 2nd and 3rd rates got heavily damaged. But they slid away with the higher speed, and the French lost 2 6th rates and 2 5th rates, but the remaining 2 3rd rates were still in near perfect state. The French then proceeded to land their reinforcements, and they captured the mining colony from the Dutch. There was a lot of fleet actions going around the globe. Most nations, especially once the war started in August, a lot of nations got pulled into that one way or another, and all are just protecting their own interests in their nearby regions. The Dutch then proceeded to set up a raiding fleet on the common trade routes in the Atlantic. Not on the jump points themselves, but a little bit off from the jump points. And then the British managed to sink a French colony ship near the end of the year in Bay of Biscay. The ship was heading to the Atlantic. So if it hadn't been sunk by the British, it probably would have been sunk by the Dutch. And then the stat comparison, you've probably been able to see most of this already while I'm been explaining things, but the French still have the largest navy, in terms of tonnage at least. Then the Dutch are the second largest, and the British are the third largest. Ottomans are still the fourth largest, very close to the British in numbers. And then it's the Spanish, Portuguese, Mughals, and pirates are the smallest, of course. And the rest of the stats you can just take a look here. If you need to, you can pause the video, that's fine. Right, so we're back in the reflection portion of the episode. So first of all, you may have noticed something. Let's actually show that. The mineral names are now different, and that's because we have actually installed a mod this time. There's actually a bit of a funny story. I asked you in the Aurora Discord, in the modding channel, that how hard would it be, and how badly would it break the game. So then the Twice to Double, who is one of the pioneers in the Aurora 4 C# modding community, decided to try it out. And it turns out it works quite well, so I've installed his Aurora mod, which you can find on the Aurora forums, under the approved mods sub-forum. And it is a very useful mod, it has a lot of useful things, although for me I'm mostly using the autosave feature and then rename the resources. But that's about it, but that's a nice little detail there. Then, so far I'm pretty happy how the game is proceeding. There's a lot of interesting things going on, especially now with the war and scheming in the background going on. Unfortunately, fighting a multi-front war with several nations is very time-consuming, so I'm afraid I'm gonna have to spread out the episodes a bit further. So I'm probably gonna be moving into a 2-week cycle instead of 1-week cycle, just to give myself a little bit extra time, and there's probably not gonna be episodes in the next 2 or maybe 3 days. Just because the war is going to take a long while, and technically I'll still only have, well, I need to record the next set of episodes while this week's episode have been going on, so yeah, there's gonna be a bit of a gap there. Hopefully you don't mind. It's just, there's only so many hours in the day, and I do like sleeping every now and then. But yeah, the schedule will be reworked a little bit, and probably these weekly recaps will be renamed into yearly recaps instead. Which is probably already on the title here, actually. But anyway, I think I'm going to keep this episode a little bit shorter. There's been a lot of action going on, so make sure that you check out the nation-specific episodes. This is mostly just general information, but you'll be able to see how the battles actually went in the episodes and so forth. And do remember to check out all the content creators' channels. Links are, as always, in the description below, as are my links. And as a shameless plug, do consider maybe checking out my Patreon or donating in PayPal or something, because doing this is actually essentially a full-time job. But anyway, we'll be back next week with more episodes. So until then, bye-bye.